Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum on Spectrum Television. Let's start off with the first big story of the day, and that's the news making the rounds that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has extended the deadline for collection of permanent voter cards, PVCs, by Nigerians from the initial date of January 22nd to January 29, 2023. Well, this was confirmed in a statement issued by the National Commissioner and Chairman, Voter Education Committee of INEC, Festus Okoye, yesterday. Well, he said INEC are impressed by the turnout of the numbers of those who have been going to collect their PVCs and were encouraged to see to an extension of the deadline. Well, joining us to talk all things INEC is someone who has been keenly monitoring the activities of INEC in the lead up to this election, and is no stranger to Political Spectrum. Basil John joins us live on the program from Imo State capital, Owerri. Good morning to you, Basil. Many thanks for joining us today. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you join us. And very quickly, the news making the rounds, of course, is that INEC has announced an extension where Nigerians can go collect their PVCs from 22nd to 29th. And it's a news that has been seen as a welcome development across the country, because everyone believes or feels it would see to deterring the large scale of disenfranchisement that many persons had feared in the event that more people do not collect their PVCs because they missed out on the deadline. But before I get your reactions on what people are saying about this over there, I'd like to draw your mind to some very disturbing piece of information equally in this part of the country, because early this morning, we reached out to INEC in Akwa Ibom State for clarification on this announcement, because I remember playing host to an INEC public officer right here on the program last week, and I did ask him if INEC had intentions, to extend the deadline from January 22nd, and he said, to the best of his knowledge, he did not think it would happen. Well, he's not in a position, of course, to decide for INEC at the national level, but when I did ask today about clarification on the information that broke out yesterday about the extension, INEC in Akwa Ibom State are claiming they've not been communicated to by INEC at the national level. I found that very interesting and disturbing at the same time. And I wonder, has the INEC in Imo State also, raised concerns as this, that they've not been communicated to by INEC in Abuja?
Well, it's quite surprising, Lemon, because if INEC, INEC officials having the extension in the Akwa Ibom State are not aware, then I'm wondering what sort of communication, if they don't have some sort of internal memo within the organization, because it's quite laughable and funny that, the whole Nigeria will hear of this innovation, of this extension by 8 days, that's probably a week, and since yesterday, yet an extension of the same body in Akwa Ibom State are not aware. It's quite laughable. But earlier this morning, we had a chat with an official of INEC here in Imo State, and well, it looked like he or she was quite aware. INEC's branch in Imo State are quite aware of this extension by a week, which is in a drive for in a bid to make Nigerians go out en masse to go collect their PVCs. And it looks like it's quite timely, because it was just 2 days ago, a couple of days ago, where INEC met with 18 political parties and their stakeholders and their agents, and also releasing the data and statistics of registered voters in Nigeria according to different strata, according to the geopolitical zones, where we actually understand that the northwest has the highest number of voter registration, and the least happens to be the southeast. But then again, if I'm to get my own reaction to this one, it's a welcome development, but I'm quite surprised that INEC as a body will issue out a memo, and an extension of the same body is not aware. I'm wondering what sort of notice or notification INEC in Akwa Ibom State are looking for. If they want to be notified separately, given the notification, okay, INEC in Akwa Ibom State, this is the memo, this is what is going to happen. But I said now, well, what the information is that INEC has increased or has extended collection of PVC dates from January 22nd to January 29th.
Interesting. Well, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, the INEC chairman, said he was quite delighted with the turnout of people who have gone to collect their PVCs, even citing a particular community where it was reported that as many as 100,000 PVCs were collected in the last 5 days. A few days back, INEC eventually released the public register to show that over 93 million persons have been registered to vote in the 2023 election. When you look at that number, it's a significant rise from what we had at the 2019 polls. But if out of 93 million persons, then we're having concerns about having that number reflect on the eventual voting register by the time the elections come around on 25th of February and March 11. Are you also concerned that the slow pace of the PVC collection, in spite of this deadline extension, I would say to, a drastic reduction in the number of voters, in spite of the fact that we're celebrating having 93 million plus persons registered to vote at the polls?
Well, then again, Ray, you'll understand that, okay, the number of voters in Nigeria, or registered voters for the 2023 elections, the next month's election, significantly increased. If you actually check the statistics issued by the electoral body, it has actually increased far manageably that it was in 2019, except one statistic, except that of the Southeast, where, I think, if I am correct, registered voters in 2019 was about 10.5, and now in 2023 about 10.6, which is relatively low as compared to the significant rise in other regions like the South and probably the North Central. But then again, one thing we need to understand is that INEC, they are making it quite a problem for them. Now, early this morning, where we sampled opinions, most of our respondents here in Imo State were complaining of the process of getting their PVCs. And INEC said you can actually go get your PVCs at your polling unit where you will vote. Go there, you'll get your PVCs, and even that extension can collect your PVCs even over the weekend. But then most people here in Imo State, this is not the case, especially here in Owerri. It's at only one center, and INEC just actually apologized for that. They said that they had their water sort of some sort of logistics, that in due time they will actually revert to issuing out these PVCs across different polling units. Now, if only one place, that is the Assumpta Cathedral, that is where they are getting these PVCs here in Owerri Municipal. If that is the case, now imagine residents in Owerri all trooping down to that particular place. This will actually discourage some people who are quite impatient enough to wait and follow the process. Some people even have their own duties, responsibilities, and businesses to catch for, to actually go there, waste their time, and not do PVC, go the same day, the same process. So I feel the extension is good, and it's in line in making sure that most of these voters who register can go out to get their PVCs, and also gives INEC the opportunity to put their houses in order. So it's a good extension, nice one, and I just do hope and I believe that INEC can do a whole lot of sensitization and make sure that this information is out there, so that people in the nooks and crannies of the villages will know. Because one thing that we understand is no matter what happens, INEC will find a way to most of these villages during elections to conduct one, send the divas down there. But are they doing the necessary orientation to these people for them to know that this extension has happened? That is why I really commend the media of what they are doing to make sure that they preach the gospel of this collection of the PVCs. Because if we want to change Nigeria, we need to start from somewhere. And this where is making sure that we get the PVCs. 29th, next week Friday is 20th. Then we're talking about the end of this month. So January, we actually use January to do the collection of the PVC just before they can end stock.
Right.
So, but another thing that we will be asking people, because earlier this morning in the chat with one INEC official, she warned that Nigerians should try as much as possible to resist the urge of sending out their VIN, that voter ID number, to party agents or any political party who are trying their possible best to disenfranchise them. because the idea of disenfranchising most Nigerians is actually ongoing. And some people actually put to the first INEC that INEC, in its own anomaly, are also responsible for disenfranchising some Nigerians, while some people also, allege that some political parties on the other part are going to areas where they feel that they will not have these votes to actually disenfranchise some people, because they go there to the centers where people are collecting these PVCs. They dish out some, paltry sum of cash and just get to snap your PVC. And now we understand that with BVAS, if someone already enters your ID, well, it works with the thumbprint. It can be manipulated, of course, that we do not know yet until 2009. But so far, we know that the BVAS cannot be manipulated. So it's a two-way process, Brain. It's kind of positive and negative. The positive part of it is that the gospel is being preached, that people should go out and get it. The negative part of it is the fact that political parties are using these as an opportunity to do further campaigning. And also, on the INEC front, most people are complaining that they did the registration, they're registered, they had everything, but checking their names on voter register, their names are not there. And also trying to put the voter ID number is showing voter not found. Some people who actually registered and their names are actually showed on, the voter register on the portal of INEC are complaining that INEC, on the other part, when you go to get your PVC, most of the officials are saying, these PVC, we cannot find yours. Come back next week. Now, or we will actually, check back at the headquarters in Abuja. Well, automatically, it looks like that person is disenfranchised because that INEC official has a whole lot on his plate to follow, to dish out. And not even have time to do proper follow-up. So
interestingly, going by the statements issued by INEC and just taking it up from the points you were making a short while ago, as a result of this extension, the consequential adjustment of the collection of PVCs by location for INEC saw an extension of the collection at the registration area, which is the ward level, by just 1 week, and that's from Monday the 16th to Sunday the 22nd of January. That's if you're collecting at the ward level, while collection at the local government level is what has been extended to Sunday the 29th of January 2023. And the reason why I'm factoring this in is that you have raised the concerns around some level of negative vices going on with the collection process, with reports that there are some INEC staff who are colluding with political parties' agents, to disenfranchise a good number of people by exchanging their PVCs for meager sums of money. Well, I don't know if you've had such complaints in Imo State where you are, but these are concerns that have been raised nationwide, and INEC has said they were investigating allegations of extortion against some of its officials. Well, when INEC is apparently compromised, if anything from this report to go by, doesn't it worry most Nigerians that the electoral process has already been hampered even before the first vote has been cast?
Well, Raymond, we have these worries here in Imo State. I think it's a national concern. It is. And INEC saying we will investigate on these. Well, I'm not entirely sure if I can actually hold your word for gospel, if I can actually believe in the outcome of that investigation, because, right from the time they were talking about investigating people with registration was free. Yet most people were actually collecting cash, some amount of cash to register. And INEC promised to investigate and prosecute them up to date. No one has been prosecuted. So that's an aside. So I'm not entirely a believer of the outcome of this investigation. But if anything they say, if we are to hold them by their word, well, probably, maybe we should keep fingers crossed and check out. But here, people are complaining that some political parties or some party agents, let's not put political parties, party agents, people who are sympathetic to a particular cause, are actually coming in, giving them some sort of cash and trying to snap their PVCs. And we are wondering how this is going to aid in the process. And one particular person actually came out and talked about they're giving some sort of incentive. I don't know how to put it, some sort of meal that is not even going to last a week, because judging by the economy and the number of mouths that person is going to feed at just this today, an exchange of your VIN, voter ID number. And it's quite worrisome because if you check this out, you'll understand that, well, eventually, INEC is saying the BVAS is what we are using here. And the BVAS is trying, it's going to work with your fingerprint. So, to some extent, how is that going to happen? If they're snapping and it's entered, it means they're trying to disenfranchise some people in areas where maybe probably they feel the political party doesn't really have major strongholds. But how is INEC going to, sort this and settle this? Well, it's down to them. But it's I really commend the extension date where I do really commend it, and I'm quite hopeful. I'm really positive that most people will actually go out there and get their PVC. So the gospel now is preaching to Nigerians. And also are saying your PVC is your private property. It's just like your phone. You don't just give out your phone anyhow. You monitor it. It's a private document and one that should be kept really, really safe. And most people should resist the urge of, trying to post on social media, yeah, I've collected my PVC and just dishing out most of their private information out there. If you want to censor most of the important parts, you can actually preach the gospel by not putting out your private information on your PVC, to the public on social media, just because you want to encourage people to go collect their authority voter card. So the way forward now is sensitizing the public, people who are less educated, who really want to be part of this election, who are ignorant of these intrigues of these political party or party agents who are trying their possible best to rig the election in their own way. Because, that's some sort of rigging in their own way. And if the sensitization is good enough, is done, and is wide enough, as this collection is actually happening, you go to most of these places where we have the crowds and preach this gospel. As you collect your PVC, it is your private property. Take it back home, keep it. Come out on election day and vote with it. Because on election day, when you come out, when you need the assistant setting up Officer 1, the APO 1, to do most of the authentication, that is where the crux of this matter is. You need to get authenticated. And once the authentication fails, INEC is definitely not their personality. They will not, most of these presiding officers, they're just given, presiding officers are even core members, and they're given some, a few weeks training. They're not really an integral part of the Independent National Electoral Commission. They are ad hoc staff who are just trying to aid. So if it is started wrong from the initial stages, again, authentication will get wrong on the election day, and then the preferred candidate was not candidate.
Interesting. Well, just before I do let you go, you've talked keenly about the entire processes, but while it's a commendable effort on the part of INEC to see to an extension of the deadline by another 8 days, which Nigerians have been clamoring for, well, just like Oliver Twist, there are those who still feel the extension is still perhaps not enough because according to them, the fact that a lot of people could be largely disenfranchised is not the fault of the owners of the voter cards to not go to collect them. We keep on being inundated about the slow process of the PVC collection. I don't know if that's what informed INEC's decision to extend it again, but then there are those who say you have more than a month to go before the polls come around. The first election is on February 25. I mean, why are we still grappling with the issue of when to extend a collection of PVCs that were registered for? Maybe INEC should have looked at another 2 weeks so more persons can actually collect their PVCs. Otherwise, we risk disenfranchising a whole lot of people.
Well, I think until we can actually talk about e-voting rate, that's something where probably maybe in the next election we might actually look at that, 2027 maybe. But right now, I think we can't have enough. We should give INEC some kudos for at least trying, because we understand that most Nigerians are product of procrastination. So many people have postponed, procrastinated, first of registering. Because, this is the batch of most people that register. I think when INEC did the extension of the registration during the great rush to register in June, July last year, these are probably the batch of people who are getting the PVCs now, new registrants, and probably people who registered earlier and were quite adamant in going out to get their PVCs. So I feel we understand that the earlier, the better. INEC has actually tried. Now, I'm not in a way to criticize INEC right now, but then again, we also know that they need to put all the necessary logistics in place to make sure that the election goes on. But these logistics, we need to talk about making sure that the PVC collection is actually done and dusted. And even though some people, some civil society organizations are of the opinion that PVC collection should be a continuous process. It should be a continuous process that even on election day, someone can actually move in, collect the PVC, and actually go out to vote. But then again, look at the, how many does INEC have sufficient staff? The staff strength. Are they enough to make sure that they catch up with these? Well, probably. If the new government, it doesn't matter which party, PDP, APC, Labour Party, NPP, any other party out there that will win the election, if they want to, try their possible best to, bring the youth into the system to make sure that as they are coming into the system, we can actually make use of their manpower, work with INEC at this particular, in times like this. Good enough. But also we understand that the insufficient manpower is one of the problems INEC have in making sure that these things happen. But then again, we need to start from somewhere. From now till the 29th, Nigerians love rush hour, so I'm really sure that most people will go out, and we just need to keep on preaching the gospel and making sure that we get it right this time around.
Interesting thoughts indeed. Thank you so very much, Basil John, for joining us with deep perspectives on the activities of INEC as we look forward to the elections in over a month's time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure, Ray.
While we continue keeping tabs on this development, it's a follow-up to INEC's announcement yesterday about the extension of the deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards from the initial date of January 22nd now to January 29th. And that, of course, is as it concerns those collecting their PVCs at the local government level, while if you are to collect your PVCs at the registration level, which is your ward level, we are told that would still last up until the 16th or the 22nd rather of January. So Nigerians are being urged to take ample opportunity of this provision by INEC. And still following up on more revelations from INEC yesterday, who had disclosed that a total of 13,868,441 PVCs have been printed for new valid registrants. So in the event that you registered as recently as possible, then INEC has inundated us that your cards are now available. And still following up on the outcome of that meeting with INEC and 18 political parties, they've also reiterated that there are no concerns about holding the elections. It will not be postponed as contemplated in several quarters across the country. Election materials, we're told, have now been shipped to 17 states and delivered as well as we look forward to the polls. While they've reiterated as well that underage voters and vote buyers will be arrested and prosecuted, while also promising to investigate allegations of extortion by its officials in the course of the PVC collection process. It's a deep issue. We keep looking at that and bring you up to speed with more development as they come. But stay with us. We go for another break, and when we come back, Political Spectrum will continue. Stay with us.